It is week 21 of our 52-week home ownership and home buyer series. Jazz hands. Yes. And just like we always do every week, we are starting promptly at 7 o'clock. Anyone that comes in later, they can just come on in, but we don't wait. We don't procrastinate. We jump in that thing. And today we are talking about what happens in real estate when life changes. I do want to thank you all so much for spending part of your day with me. In case you don't know, in case you're new here, I am Daphne Brown. I'm the broker owner of Beyond The Home Realty, and we're based right here in Rocheron, but we service all of the Houston suburbs. So all of Brazoria, all the way to Fort Bend, Missouri City, Stafford, all the way to Cypress and Hockley. We are there. I care deeply about this subject, and it's a moment that when life changes, where your home becomes suddenly part of the conversation. And that is a conversation that is not necessarily, everybody's not jumping up for joy to have it, but it is necessary. Maybe it's divorce, maybe it's loss of a loved one, maybe it's retirement or a new job in another city. But whatever brought you here tonight, you are in the right place. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate you for spending some of your time with me today. Here's a truth that I've watched play out over and over again. Life doesn't wait for a perfect housing market. It doesn't wait for interest rates to drop, or for your kids to leave the house, or for the calendar to somehow magically feel convenient. Major life changes have their own timeline, and very often that timeline forces a housing decision. So today's webinar isn't about chasing the market. It's about what to do when life has already made the decision for you and how you need a strategy. So when I talk about life change sellers, what do I actually mean? In my business, I see 4 big categories show up again and again and again. The first is relationships, usually 2 people merging households, or sometimes the opposite, a marriage ending. The second is transitions, and this is broad. It could be the loss of a loved one, an empty nest, or a health change that shifts what you need from your home. The third is family growth. A new baby, a blended family, aging parents moving in, and suddenly your space doesn't fit anymore. And the fourth is career moves. A promotion, a relocation, a remote job that lets you finally move closer to your family. If you're in one of these 4 buckets right here, pay close attention to the next 30 to 45 minutes because there's something in this webinar for you. I want to share something with you that I think most agents don't really talk about. Every search someone types into Google is really a story. Behind every question about home values, every question about taxes, every question about divorce or inheritance, there's a real person sitting at their kitchen table, in their bed, on the sofa, wherever they are on Google, searching, trying to figure out what's next. My job, and the job of any good agent, isn't just to answer that question. It's to understand the story behind it. So as we go through tonight's material, I want you to know I'm not just here to give you information. I'm here to help you make a decision that fits your actual life. So now let's talk about something nobody puts in a brochure. You see all these brochures, all these realtors or anybody else in the real estate industry, but this is something nobody talks about. Selling a home is not just a financial decision. It's an emotional one. The house that you're thinking about selling held birthdays, first steps, holiday dinners, maybe the last conversations you had with a loved one. So when you start thinking about selling, you might find yourself feeling things that you didn't expect. Feelings like grief, relief, excitement, guilt, all in the same week, sometimes all in the same hour. But that is completely normal. I want you to give yourself permission to feel all of the feels, because clients who acknowledge that emotional layer tend to make better, calmer decisions. The clients who try to ignore it usually end up second guessing themselves at the worst possible moment, like the day before closing. So, step one of selling a home in a life transition is honoring the legacy of the home before you ever put a sign in the yard. Let's get to the questions that I hear most often. No matter the situation, almost every seller I talk to is wrestling with three big questions. First, am I ready? Not just financially, but emotionally. Have I sat with this decision long enough? Second, is the timing right? Should I sell now or wait it out? And I'll be honest with you, there's no universally right answer. It depends on why you're selling and what the local market is doing. And third, can I trust those online estimates? That's a really good question. You know the ones that I'm talking about. I ain't gonna say the names. I almost said it, but Z me, baby, okay? You type your address into a website and a number for your home magically popped up. And my honest take on this is it's a starting point, but it's not a strategy. Those algorithms haven't walked through your home. They don't know that your kitchen was just renovated. They don't know that the house three doors down, the sellers were in distress and it was a short sale or it was a foreclosure. They don't know that the home across the street sold under market because the seller was in a hurry for whatever reason. A real valuation comes from a real person who has walked through your home and knows your neighborhood. Now, let's talk about divorce. This is one of the hardest situations I work in, and one of the ones where having the right agent matters most. Generally, there are two paths. You can sell before the divorce is finalized. The advantage there is simplicity. The equity gets divided cleanly. Both parties walk away with their share and nobody is tied to a shared asset anymore. So nothing to fight over, right? At least not with probably one of the biggest assets that two people will share. Or you can sell during the divorce proceedings. That route has its own complications because there are court schedules, attorneys get involved, and a lot of coordination between the two parties. Neither path is automatically better, though. The right answer depends on your timeline, your attorneys, and how cooperative the two of you can be right now. But what I will tell you is this: the sooner you bring a neutral, experienced agent into the conversation, the smoother both paths get. When you are selling a home during an active divorce, the practical reality is that you're juggling three teams at once. You're juggling your attorney, your spouse's attorney, and the real estate side. And my job in that scenario is to be the neutral party. I don't take sides. I represent the property and the sale itself. That means clear communication with both parties, equal access to offer information, every offer and every counter, so that there are no surprises. I found that when a divorcing couple has one professional who they both trust to be even-handed, the whole process gets significantly less painful. It doesn't make the divorce easier, but it does mean that the house doesn't become one more thing that they're fighting about. This is what can cost you real money, okay? Buyers always ask the same question. When they tour home, they want to know, why is this home being sold? They always ask that. If the answer that comes back is divorce or inheritance or job loss, buyers smell desperation and urgency. And urgency and desperation invites lowball offers. I've seen homes lose tens of thousands of dollars in equity simply because the seller's story leaked somehow into the listing. So my rule is simple on this. Your personal circumstances do not belong on the MLS, and they do not belong in the neighborhood, okay? They don't belong in casual conversations with the buyer's agent either. That is your listing agent's fiduciary duty, which is to keep your information confidential, because your reasons for selling, those are your reasons, and protecting that narrative protects your equity. And so I will say this, it never ever fails. If there is a situation where a couple is divorcing, buyers and their agents like to be nosy. And I know, because I'm that buyer's agent too, right? If I see neighbors outside, I'll just get into a conversation, not really to probe and get more information about what's going on inside the house, but I want to know, like, hey, how's the neighborhood? I just start asking all kinds of questions about security and all of those things. And without being prompted, that neighbor is going to volunteer some information. So if it is, oh, yeah, they fuss and cuss and fight and they finally calling it quits. Well, that's information that it's been given to the buyer's agent or the buyers, the potential buyers, that they didn't even ask, but a neighbor is going to volunteer information, especially if it's negative. So please, whatever situation is going on, keep that information within the four walls of that home, because it spreads, okay? And we do not need low ball offers. So now let's briefly talk about how the actual proceeds get divided, because this is a Texas specific matter and it matters. Texas is a community property state. And in plain English, what that means is the equity built up during the marriage is generally split equally between the two spouses. But here's where it gets nuanced. If one spouse brought money into the marriage from before, what's called separate property, that contribution can affect how things get divided. And the mortgage payments made during the separation period, those can shift the math as well. This is exactly why you want both a good real estate agent and a good family law attorney working together. The agent handles the sell side and the attorney handles the math. When those two professionals communicate, you walk away with a fair, clean financial split. Now, let us shift gears to inheritance. If you've recently inherited a home, first, I want to say, I'm sorry for your loss. Selling an inherited property is one of the most emotionally complex transactions in real estate. You're not just selling a house, you're selling and sorting through someone's life. Their photo albums, their kitchen utensils, the chair your mom always sat in. So before we even talk about the financial side, I want to say, give yourself time. Time to process, time to breathe, time to grieve. There's no prize for selling fast, but there are some practical pieces you need to understand. So let us walk through those. The first question that almost every inheritor asks me is, do I have to go through probate before I sell? The honest answer is typically yes, but not always, okay? If the property was held in a trust, or if there's a transfer on death deed in place, you may be able to skip probate entirely, and that could save you months. Here's the good news, though, for Texans. Texas offers some of the most seller-friendly probate alternatives in the country. Something called independent administration typically takes only 4 to 8 weeks, and time is money. That's a far cry from the year plus you might hear about in other states. So before you assume that you're stuck in a long legal process, talk to a probate attorney. There's a real chance you have a faster path available than you realize. Now, this next concept is one of the most valuable things that I can teach you today. It's called the stepped up basis. Here's how it works in plain language. When someone passes away and you inherit their home, for tax purposes, the value of that home gets reset to whatever it's worth on the date of death. So let me give you an example. Say your parents bought their home in 1985 for $60,000. Woo! Take me back. Take me back. I want to go back. And today that home is worth $400,000. If they had sold it before they passed, they'd owe capital gains tax on $340,000 of that appreciation, because 400 minus 60, 340. But because you inherited it, your tax basis steps up to $400,000. So if you sell it tomorrow for 400,000, your capital gains tax is essentially zero. And this is an enormous tax break. And a lot of inheritors don't even know that this exists. So please, before you sell, talk to a tax professional. Make sure you're taking full advantage of this. I definitely understand that just this few minutes that I talked about it, you're not going to have a full understanding of this, and that's fine. I'm not expecting you to, but I just kind of want to put that feather in your hat so you know to have that conversation if this applies to you. Now let's talk about the hardest part of inheritance: siblings who don't agree on what to do with the property. I see this all the time. Recently, we had a transaction involving 3 sisters, and you could tell that the tension was thick, right? And so anytime we had to have a conversation, whether it was a phone call or in person, we felt like we were always being pulled to one side. You know, they were trying to pull us one side to the other, kind of like, be on my side. And we had to always make sure that we, balanced, everything to where it's fair, right? And where nobody felt like, oh, you're showing more favoritism towards that person, you're showing more favoritism towards that person. It was tough. But one sibling wants to sell quickly and split the money. Another sibling may want to keep the house in the family, and the third may want to rent it out and use it as a vacation home. And underneath all of that, there's usually grief, and sometimes old family wounds that have nothing to do with the house bubble up, right? Here's what I want you to know. Texas does allow something called a partition action, which is essentially a court forcing the sale when siblings cannot agree. But I'm going to be straight with you. It is expensive, it is slow, and it can permanently damage family relationships. So before anyone files anything, my strong recommendation is mediation, or bringing in a neutral real estate professional to lay out the numbers in front of everyone. And when you bring in data, not feelings, everyone is looking at the same numbers, the home's actual value, the estimated proceeds after taxes, the cost of holding versus selling. This changes the entire conversation. Facts give grieving families something neutral to focus on. And so we want you to use that to your advantage in that situation. All right. We're moving on to retirement. If you are approaching retirement, or if you're already there, you're probably wrestling with the classic question: do I sell my current home first, or do I buy my next one first? Both paths have real trade-offs. Selling first means you have your equity in hand. You know your budget. You can make a clean, non-contingent offer on your next home, which that proves to be powerful during negotiations. The downside is you may need a temporary place to live while you shop for your next house. Buying first means you secure your dream retirement home before someone else grabs it. But now you're carrying 2 mortgages until your home sells. That can be financially and emotionally stressful. If you go the buy first route, there are tools that can help, like bridge loans, lease back agreements, where you can stay in the home as a renter after you close until your next home is ready. A good agent is going to walk you through which option fits your specific finances. So don't let anyone tell you that there's only one right way, because that is just not true. It's not the case. All right. Let us move on to downsizing. Ooh. Although honestly, I prefer the term right sizing, because it's really not about shrinking. It's about matching your home to the life that you're actually living now. In your 50s, 60s, and 70s, what you need from a home now is going to be entirely different than what you needed from your home at 35. Maybe you don't need that big backyard anymore because it's more yard work to do every weekend. Maybe stairs are starting to feel like a chore. Maybe a smaller single-story home in a walkable neighborhood would actually make you happier. Right sizing isn't giving anything up. It's choosing what fits your next chapter. And done well, it can free up equity, reduce your monthly costs, and give you a home that supports your retirement lifestyle instead of fighting against it. But here is the practical fear that I hear all the time. Daphne, how on earth am I supposed to get through 40 years of stuff? And I get it. That's a real overwhelming question. So here is what I tell my clients. Start slowly. The best timelines I've seen are 6 to 12 months, not 6 to 12 weeks. One room at a time, one drawer at a time, one box at a time. And second, talk to your family early. Ask your kids, your siblings, ask your grandkids what items they want. And do it before you start sorting, because there's nothing more painful than realizing that you've donated something that meant a lot to a family member. And third, for everything else, estate sale companies are your best friend. They handle the logistics, they price everything for you, and they often get you more money than you expect. Now, I also want to say that Facebook Marketplace is a good option as well. You can stick a tag on something, take a picture, and if someone is interested, maybe they hit you a couple times with questions, but then it's up to them to come and pick it up. That could be good. Just make sure that you're being safe, that you're keeping safety at the forefront in doing that. Downsizing feels impossible until you start. And then room by room, it becomes one of the most freeing things you'll ever do. And your mind is decluttered and you feel a lot better as you're in the process and towards the end than you did when you started. All right. Here's another tax point that can save you a huge amount of money, and it's specifically for people selling their primary home. It's called the primary residence capital gains exclusion. If you're single, you can exclude up to $250,000 of profit from capital gains tax. If you're married filing jointly, that doubles to $500,000. The only catch is you have to have lived in the home for 2 of the last 5 years. Now, keep in mind what I said, 2 of the last 5. It doesn't mean that you have to be there the last 2 years, just 2 out of the last 5. This is one of the most generous tax breaks in the entire tax code. And it's especially valuable for retirees who have lived in their home for decades and built up significant equity. So if you're sitting on a home that's appreciated a lot, don't sell without first understanding how this exclusion applies to your situation. Our fourth big life change category is job relocation. This one has its own special kind of stress because you're often dealing with a tight timeline that you didn't set. And it's not self-imposed, right? The people at work say, let's get this done. Your new job starts in 60 days, and now you have to figure out the move. You've got to figure out the kids' schools, and somewhere in there, you've got to sell a house. And here's how I help my clients navigate this. So first, start the sale process as soon as possible. Time is not your friend. The moment you accept that offer letter, call your real estate agent. Second, explore whether your employer offers relocation assistance. Many of them do. And it can include things like guaranteed buyouts, temporary housing, or coverage of your closing costs. And third, consider whether it makes sense to rent out your home rather than sell it, especially if you're not sure if the move is going to be permanent. Sometimes the math works in your favor. Now, we know relocation is hard, but with planning and the right team, it does not have to be chaotic. All right, so we've talked about the why. Now let's briefly talk about the how. All right. When you decide to sell, 3 things move the needle more than anything else. Number 1, declutter, okay? Aim to remove about 30% of your stuff before the photographer ever shows up. I know that can sound like a lot, but trust me, buyers can't see your house when it's full of your stuff. Declutter as much as possible. Number 2, curb appeal. The first 8 seconds a buyer sees your home online decides whether they want a tour or not. 8 seconds. So fresh mulch, a clean front door, look at here, boy, look at here. And trimmed landscaping pay for themselves many times over. And third, light neutral kitchens get more offers, period. That is a fact. If your kitchen is dark or dated, even small updates like paint, hardware, and lighting can dramatically change how buyers respond and receive that kitchen. None of these have to cost a fortune, but all 3 of them matter. And here are 6 mistakes to avoid. All right, these are the biggest mistakes I see life change sellers make. These are the ones that cost real money, so please pay attention. Mistake number 1, making emotional decisions under stress. When you're grieving or going through a divorce or panicking about a move, this is the worst time to make a major financial choice. So slow down, give yourself 24 hours before making any big decisions. Mistake number 2, price based on what you need instead of what the home is worth. Your mortgage payoff number doesn't determine market value. I wish it did. It just doesn't. The market determines market value. Pricing too high to cover what you owe is the fastest way to end up sitting on the market for months. And then there's a stigma attached to the listing, and now you have to unravel all that, or your agent has to unravel all that. So please price your home based off of market data. Mistake number 3, skipping professional representation. Now I get it. Agents cost money, but the right agent more than pays for themselves through pricing, negotiations, and avoiding costly mistakes. We'll talk more about that in the question and answer session. Mistake number 4, ignoring the legal side, especially in divorce and inheritance sales. A missed disclosure, a botched contract clause, an unaddressed lien. These can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Mistake number 5, letting time pressure rush your decision. Yes, life is on a deadline, but that doesn't mean every decision has to happen today. Build in some breathing room. Mistake number 6, picking your agent based on who promises the highest price. Some agents inflate their evaluation just to win the listing. Then once you've signed, they spend weeks talking you into price drops. Pick your agent based on strategy, communication, and track record, not on flattery. All right, just a little FYI for you. All right. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, Daphne, that's a lot. And that it is, okay? What does the actual selling process look like, though? Tell me, Dee. And so I'm going to walk you through this briefly. We've talked about this in past Wednesday webinars, so I'm not going to get too far into every detail. But we are going to start off with the consultation where we sit down, we learn about your situation. We're going to discuss timing, pricing strategy, and any unique factors like divorce, inheritance, or relocation. Step 2 is going to be preparation, where we get the home market ready. Sometimes that's a deep clean and staging, and sometimes that's coordinating repairs. But sometimes it's pricing the home strategically for an as-is sale. Step 3 is going to be marketing, professional photography, videography, MLS listing, social media, and our private network of buyers. Step 4, showings and offers. I screen every offer carefully and negotiate hard on your behalf. Step 5, contract to close. I manage the title company, the inspector, the appraiser, the lender, so you don't have to. There are some things you have to do, some responsibilities that a seller has. We talked about that in last week's webinar. Step 6 is the keys being handed over, the closing of one chapter and the opening of the next. Throughout all of it, you'll always know what's happening because I'll always communicate with you. I do not go silent. You don't need that on top of everything else that you're going through. Now, why should you specifically work with Beyond the Home Realty? I'll be direct about this. There are plenty of agents in Houston who can list your house. That part ain't hard. What's hard and what I've built my entire business around is handling sensitive life situations with care, discretion, and competence. Divorce, death, health changes, job transitions. These situations require an agent who knows when to push and when to pause, who understands the legal and the emotional layers, and who has a network of attorneys, tax professionals, contractors, estate specialists to support you through all of it. My clients aren't transactions, they're people in a chapter of their lives, and that's exactly how I treat every person, every listing. If anything we've talked about today applies to your life or someone you love, I'd be honored to help. Just send them my way. There are 3 easy ways to reach me. You can visit my website. It is here, beyondthehomerealty.com. You can email me at Daphne@beyondthehomerealty.com, or you can call or text me directly at 281-808-0471. My number's here. I offer a free, no pressure consultation, whether you're ready to sell tomorrow or just exploring options for next year. Let's talk. Let's strategize. Let's get some planning going. There's no clock. There's no obligation, just an honest conversation about your situation. All right. That's the main content. Now, some questions that we received, and 4 of the most common questions that I get from sellers. All right. And if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. One of the most common questions I get, and honestly, the single most Googled real estate question of 2026 so far is this: is now a good time to sell? And my honest answer is, it depends on why you're selling. And right now, that why matters more than it ever has before. So let me give you the current Texas snapshot. As of spring 2026, the median sales price across Texas is around $340,000. That's down a little under 2% year over year. But inventory is sitting at about 10 months of supply, which technically puts us in a buyer's market around most areas in Houston. And mortgage rates are hovering somewhere around 6.5%. So on the surface, that looks tougher than the seller's market that we had in 2021, 2022. It is. But here's what most people miss. Conditions are still favorable. Homes are still moving. Overpriced homes are sitting. Homes that need work are sitting. And buyers are choosing whether they want a home they can just walk right into, turnkey, or a home that they have to do a few repairs. They have a lot to do. They're not going to want to do it because simply and honestly, they don't have to. There's enough inventory out here. Now is the time where buyers are being choosier than they ever have before. But well-priced, move-in ready homes are still selling. I want to tell you that again. And here's how I think about it. If you're selling because of a life change like divorce, inheritance, retirement, relocation, yes, all of those things, I would say sell. The market may shift further before it improves, but life rarely waits for the perfect timing. If you're selling because your home needs work, fix what matters first, or price aggressively from day one. Don't try to split the difference. And if you locked in a 3% mortgage a few years ago and are just curious, There's no urgency. Wait until you have a real reason. The bottom line, though, is do what's best for you. In 2021, anybody could sell. But in 2026, it's very important that you understand that strategy wins. So that's why you hear so many people talking about strategy, because that's what's winning out here. If you, what do they say? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we have to put a plan in place. All right. Okay. The next question is, should I sell my house as is or fix it up first? My honest answer is it depends on three things: your timeline, your cash, and what's actually broken. Here's when fixing it up can make sense. If the repairs are cosmetic, like paint, flooring, lighting, landscaping, and the total cost is under 2% of the expected sales price, then I suggest doing them because the return is almost always worth it. And if major systems are aging, like the roof, the HVAC, or the water heater, because buyers are going to demand credits for those anyways, so you might as well address them on your terms. And if the home shows poorly in photos, fix that. 90% of buyers shop online first. So if your listing photos don't earn the click, you don't get the showing. Now here's when selling as is makes more sense. If you're in a life transition and you genuinely cannot manage a renovation, then sell as is because your peace of mind matters most. Then also, if you've inherited a home and you don't want to pour money into someone else's home, sell as is. If the repair costs would exceed what they'd add in value, sell as is. And if you simply need to close quickly, sell as is. Now, let me give you the hard truth about return on investment. Most renovations don't pay back what you put into them. The highest return improvements are almost always the cheapest ones, like fresh paint, a deep clean, basic landscaping, decluttering, professional staging, often under $3,000 total, and they can add $10,000 or more to the sales price. The lowest return improvements are the big ticket ones. Kitchen remodels rarely recoup more than 70%. Bathroom additions, designer finishes, sunrooms, these almost never pay back more than 70%. It does help your home sell faster, and it does make it to where the home is more marketable, but that's it. And here's the one thing I want you to remember. As is does not mean discounted. It means priced correctly for the home's actual condition and marketed to the right buyer pool, such as investors, flippers, and buyers who choose to renovate. Your agent's job is to find those buyers. Here's a question that comes up a lot, especially in today's market, and that is, what if my house doesn't sell? So first, breathe. Woosah, because this happens more than people think, and it's almost always fixable. There really are only 4 reasons that homes don't sell, and I'm going to walk you through them in order of frequency. Reason number 1, price. All right. This is the cause about 80% of the time. So in Texas right now, the median seller price cut is around $19,000, which equates to about 5% off the original listing price. If buyers aren't even making offers, your price is wrong, period. Reason number 2, condition. Buyers compare your home to every other listing that they tour. If 3 competing homes have updated kitchens and yours doesn't, your price has to reflect that, or the kitchen has to be updated. It's just that simple. Reason number 3, marketing. Bad photos, a weak listing description, limited online exposure, and an agent who doesn't return calls, all chalked up to bad marketing, okay? Or the lack thereof, let's say that, which to me still is bad. This is the easiest reason to fix though, and it's the one that I see overlooked the most. And reason number 4, showing access. So if your home is hard to schedule, if the hours are restricted, if buyers can't get in quickly when they're interested, you will lose offers because buyers will move on. Again, in our market, there is so much inventory. Nobody has to fight to get in through your doors. That home is special to you, not to everybody else. So if I am the buyer's agent, I'm going to encourage them. Let's move on to something else. I don't mind coming back to this, but let's look at other things, because if it is that difficult to schedule a showing for the home, imagine what it would look like if we get in a transaction with these sellers. What do you do if your home has been sitting? Well, first, you want to get a fresh set of eyes. A second opinion from another broker is free, and it's often eye-opening. I do these all the time. If agents call me and want a fresh set of eyes, I don't have an issue, and I don't think other agents would have an issue helping their fellow peers out. Secondly, reshoot the damn pictures, okay? Get better photos with better lighting, better staging, and a fresh editing eye. And third, reduce the price meaningfully. Now, 1% drop signals not a damn thing, but a 5% drop attracts a whole new set of buyers. So have that price improvement be meaningful. And fourth, consider pulling the listing off the market for 30 to 60 days and then relisting it as fresh inventory, because you'll see that buyers respond differently to a brand new listing. I will tell you though, I use a little caution when it comes to this, and have a real conversation with your agent, because I wouldn't want you to pull it off while it is selling season, because while it's off market, you may miss the opportunity, or the seller may miss the opportunity to get some buyers. And fifth, explore creative options like leasing the home out, selling to an investor. I will tell you, there's always a path forward. It just comes down to sometimes how willing you are able to pivot. Your home will sell. It just needs the right strategy. And finally, the last big question, and it's one that I see in Facebook groups all the time. Every now and then someone will ask me this question, and it is, do I really need a real estate agent, or can I sell the house myself? And my answer is always the same. You can sell your house yourself. But the real question should be whether you should sell your home yourself. So according to the National Association of Realtors, their data shows that the average for sale by owner home sells for about 6 to 10% less than agent assisted sales. And based on that math, most FSBO sellers actually net less money than the agent represented sellers, even after factoring in the compensation savings. Why though? Well, there's several reasons. There's less exposure when you sell it on your own. Most of the time, FSBO sellers don't have full access to the MLS in most cases, so the buyer is smaller. You do have transaction brokerages, but you get what you pay for. Then also another reason is emotional pricing. When a FSBO seller is selling their home, typically the price is high because they base the price on what they need, what they want, not what the market supports. Also, weaker negotiations is a reason, because the FSBO seller is negotiating against trained professionals. And then another reason is DIY listing photos that lose buyers in the first 3 seconds. And here's the one most people don't think about. Buyers assume that for sale by owner sellers are desperate or inexperienced, and because of that, they lowball accordingly. Now, FSBO can absolutely work in certain situations. If, for instance, you already have a buyer lined up, like a family member, a neighbor, or a friend, then FSBO may make sense. If your home is in such extreme demand that buyers will line up regardless, then FSBO can possibly work, though it's rare in today's market because buyers want to be represented by the best, and they're going to have an agent. So you should have an agent. Sellers should have an agent as well. Also, if you have real professional experience in real estate, legal, and marketing, you may be able to pull it off. But for life change sales specifically, like divorce, inheritance, relocation, retirement, for sale by owner is almost never the right call. These situations have legal, emotional, and financial complexity that benefit from a professional. The cost of a single misstep, a missed disclosure, a botched contract clause, a tax surprise usually will exceed the commission that you would have paid. There's a middle option worth knowing about, however. So I talked just a second ago about discount brokerages and flat fee MLS services. You can still get access to the MLS without full support, but again, you get what you pay for. These can be useful if you're confident handling negotiations and paperwork yourself, but they're risky in complex situations. My honest take, in today's market, a good agent more than pays for themselves through pricing strategy, through negotiation, through exposure, and through protecting you from the costly mistakes most for sale by owner sellers don't even know they're making. Now, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I know your time is valuable, and I do not take that lightly. If anything we covered today applies to your life or to someone you care about, please reach out. And we're always ready and willing to enable you to find your way home. Till next Wednesday, bye. Don't forget, you can always check out past webinars by clicking here.